Hey, I'm Susanna Lanier, actor and acting coach for over 25 years.
I'm Jess Greenberg, casting director for over 10 years.
We're here to help you navigate this crazy, creative, and sometimes chaotic journey into the film and television world.
We share our insights as to what works.
And invite some pretty spectacular guests to share more ideas to move you on your journey.
So without further ado, let's get into the show.
Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with one of Canada's most renowned voice directors and actors, Richard Dumont. He has directed over 500 projects, from top-rated video games such as Avatar and Assassin's Creed Origins to hit animation shows such as Miramax's Little Twins to Gwen Stefani's KuuKuu Harajuku. Welcome, Richard. Yay!
Welcome. Wow, what an intro. I want to hear this guy. I want to hear him.
Yes, well, we're so happy you're here. So thank you.
I'm thrilled to be here. I am, truly.
Good, thank you. Okay, well, we'll jump right in. We're back.
Do it.
Season 2, episode 2.
Woo!
You're our first guest of our second season, so this is very exciting.
Yes.
I'm honored. I'm honored.
It's amazing.
Thank you for that. Thank you.
So you were born in Toronto.
Yes, Scarborough, Ontario, yes, which was a borough of Toronto and now is its own city. So,
Wow.
yeah, wow.
Interesting. So tell us a bit about like your younger self. When was acting? When did that start?
My younger self, way back when the earth was cooling and pterodactyls would rule the sky, we'd hunt and gather, and I would act. For whatever reason, back in the day, I had a buddy, and we wanted to put together as best we could a comedy duo. We were in grade 4 or 5.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, tell me about it. So we would watch whatever comedy show was on the night before, and we would do it. The teacher would allow us once a week to get up and do 5 minutes in the class. So we would basically just, by memory, we would do whatever comedy show we liked that we'd seen that week or the night before, and we would do it in front of the class. So it started from there. Then they would have me MC the student assemblies in grade school. Then I went into high school, and we were the first, this is back in Toronto, we were the first, I was at the separate school board. I was taught by the De La Salle brothers and the Grey Nuns. And for the separate school board, there were 2 schools, ours, which was Senator O'Connor College, and St. Mike's. They introduced theater arts in the separate school board to 2 schools, 1 class in each of the 2 schools as a testing ground. They're going to do it for 2 years. And then subsequently it was a success, and they kept theater arts. Anyway, so I went to theater arts in high school and so on and so forth. And there you go. And here we are today.
And here we are today. Cool. That's been great.
Cool.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Did I answer your question? It was a long way around it, but I answered it, did I?
No, but I'm always curious as to what kind of kid were you? It's part of your personality, and some people are not that way. Some of them just stumble into acting, whatever, but it clearly comedy was an interest at an early age. So then you went on and went to Ryerson, and what did you study at UCLA?
UCLA, I was taking pre-med, medicine.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Medicine was always a love of mine. It was medicine and theater. And my uncle, who passed just last Christmas, was a pediatric cardiologist in Los Angeles, and UCLA was his alma mater. He was a pediatrician and a pediatric cardiologist. I went down, visited him a couple times and fell in love with Southern California. If an opportunity arose, and it did, to go to school there, and I did. So I was working at UCLA Hospital as a surgical orderly, and I was studying at UCLA. Then at night, I took a comedy class with Jerry Paris. Jerry Paris, as I'm sure many of you know, so he played the dentist next door on the Dick Van Dyke Show.
Okay, I did not know that. Wow, okay.
He went, it was Jerry Helper. His name was Jerry Paris, and he played Jerry Helper, who was a dentist who lived next door to Dick Van Dyke in the show. Jerry Paris directed between him and Gary Marshall, most of the Happy Days episodes. So he had a comedy class that he was teaching. It was called The Funny Bone, I believe, at UCLA. And I took it, and I just loved it. I mean, learning from this man was incredible. And Ron Howard would come in, and a lot of the cast of Happy Days would come in as guest speakers and that sort of thing. It was very much one-on-one, though. I think it was maybe 40 people in the whole class, which was quite small,
Wow.
actually.
Yeah.
And I loved it. So I wrote home to my mom and dad, and I said, look, I really want to do this. And I didn't know what they would say. And what they did say was that, okay, you come back to Toronto, try it for a year at Ryerson to take the theater course at Ryerson, theater acting. And but if your grades aren't there for it, or if it turns out that you're just not getting along in the course, promise us that you'll go back to medicine. And I made that
Right.
promise. And, and I stuck to it. I went to Ryerson, loved it, and went on from there.
Wow.
I find that so interesting. I fell in love with Southern California, which most actors would be like, so I went into acting and went to Hollywood. And you were like, I fell in love with Southern California, so I became an actor in Canada, but I was thinking of medicine in Southern California.
Yeah.
It's funny, eh?
Yeah.
It's interesting. But I get the connection because of your uncle. Cool. So then it was off to Second City. How did you get there?
The end of my second year at Ryerson, during the hiatus, Second City had, and still do, I understand, had workshops there. Second City at that time only had one touring company. Now I understand they've got like 6 or something like that. I could be wrong, but it's more than one. And now they're all over the place, right? They're in I was in Las Vegas recently, and there's a Second City in Las Vegas. There's a Second City in New York City. Obviously, the main one, the original in Chicago. I was taking the class, and one of the actors in the touring company went on his honeymoon. He got married, and he went on a 3-week honeymoon. So they asked me, I was in the class, they asked me whether or not I would fill in for him. And yeah, so I went ahead and I filled in for him. And then he came back, and they asked me if I would be interested in staying in the troupe as another actor in the troupe. And yeah, and I was just thrilled to do that. Because I used to go to Second City when I was in theater arts in high school. I'd go to Second City all the time. I mean, literally all the time. It was like I don't know, it was just like a sickness. I don't know, but I went all the time. And I saw the greats. I saw Eugene Levy, Martin Short, John Candy, Joe Flaherty, Catherine O'Hara, obviously, Andrea Martin, you name it. They were in the main troupe. Did I say Peter Ackroyd, Dan's brother? They were all in that troupe. So can you imagine seeing these guys? And I would honestly go, I'd say once a week anyway, for almost a year, faithfully, and watch these guys. And I learned so much.
I bet.
From watching these people. They're incredible. I mean, what a cast.
What a cast.
Yeah.
But at the time, they weren't the names that they are now or that they had become. Did you know it? Did you feel it when you were watching them? These guys are going to be huge.
Yeah.
No, this is.
Yeah, they were on the cusp. Well,
right.
They had done, people know SCTV. I mean, you know that, Second City TV. But they were it was just called Second City. CBC did, I want to say it was a season. What is that? 12 episodes, 12, 13 episodes, whatever it was. Second City. That was on, I'd say a good 2 or maybe 3 years before SCTV. I think it was NBC that picked up SCTV. They were on before that, and they were just hysterical while they were doing main stage for the most part. While they were doing the main stage, they were filming that in Toronto. SCTV was filmed out in Edmonton. But Second City, the actual TV show on CBC, they filmed in Toronto while they were doing main stage.
Okay.
That's so cool.
Interesting. Yeah, so cool.
You could tell me these guys. I mean, how can you not see John Candy and Martin Short, and Dave Thomas was hysterical too.
I bet. And Catherine O'Hara. I mean, come on. Like
she started. She was in the ticket booth. She was selling tickets to the Second City. There at the fire. Used to be at the Fire Hall on Adelaide Street in Toronto. And she was selling tickets. She was the ticket booth.
I love that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's the best it's the best when they were regular people just like you and I.
That's it. Exactly. Yeah.
No, but it's exciting.
I heard her belch once. She belched. Yeah, just like that.
But it's amazing. I love that.
Yeah, it's very cool. And so
very nice to me. Always nice to me. Always nice to me, I have to say.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, that's good to hear. That's
A lot of people aren't. That's why I'm making that point.
Yeah.
No,
absolutely.
exactly. Yeah.
She's a very nice lady. Very
Yeah.
supportive.
Good. All right. So you got into comedy was how you sort of started everything. How did it trickle out to acting, voice work?
Well, I did a series of. I went to Ryerson, as I was saying, then left when I was with Second City, and then I started to do theater, and was lucky. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. Was lucky enough. I came here to Montreal because first I toured with Second City. We went into Southern Ontario and Southern Quebec, and came here as part of a celebrity week that they had at one of the comedy clubs. But I remember falling in love with Montreal. I just loved the city, and came back because we were touring, as I say, in Southern Ontario, and someone from Southern Quebec, from Montreal, came and saw us, came and saw us, and really liked us, and asked us if we'd be interested in coming to Montreal, because there was a lot of dinner theater at that time here in Montreal. There really was. Now it's gone. Anyway, so we came back to and played at the Meridian Theater at the theater there. I was with Acme Harpoon Company, which was composed and comprised of basically ex-Second City people. We got together, we formed a troupe, the Acme Harpoon Company, which I still own to this day. That's my company. And I did that. Then a director came to see that. Roger, I don't know if you remember Roger Peace. He's passed.
Yes, I sure do. Yeah.
What a great guy. Well, I was lucky enough to do Sheer Madness, which to this day, as far as I know, to this day, still holds the record for the longest running English language production in Quebec theater history.
Wow.
We played for over 2 years. We beat Anglo. Anglo was the winner at that point. We beat them. So I did that, and during the course of that run, a voice director, my mentor, Tim Reed, also has passed, very young. He came to see the show one night, and then he asked me after the show. We met. He said, "Would you be interested in doing voice work? You ever done that? Have you ever done cartoons?" At that time, he did mostly cartoons.
Right.
I said, "Cartoons?" Because I'm a Warner Brothers guy from way back, from my grandfather. My grandfather would be ha 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 laughing at it, and I, as a little kid, I didn't understand what, because we forget, or a lot of us don't know, that those Warner Brother cartoons originally, they were played in movie theaters. They were played in movie theaters, like between the intermission or what have you.
Yeah.
And they were geared towards adults. They weren't geared for television and for, that demographic. They weren't. It was to please mostly adults in the movie theater. So there were jokes that went way over my head. I did not get it all. So I love those Warner Brothers cartoons, and so did Tim. Loved them. So we got together, and I was lucky enough to. The first thing I did was I can't remember what the hell the first thing I did was. Then I did a movie for him for dubbing, but then I got to do The Wizard of Oz. There was a contract for The Wizard of Oz for 56 and 56, 112 episodes of The Wizard of Oz cartoon, 30 minutes. Not these 7-minute ones that we do today so often. 30 freaking minutes, which is 26, I guess. Can I say freaking? 26 minutes of animation. I got to play the Scarecrow. I auditioned for the Scarecrow, and I was lucky enough to get it. That is how I learned how to do animation. And that is how I learned how to read the Rhythmo Band. It was because of that, because that's an intense course, 112 episodes. That's for sure. Being taught at that time by the best. He was the best, Tim Reed.
Okay.
Wow.
That's how I got into cartoons, and then from there, it went on and went on. One day, Tim was ill, and they asked me if I would direct a couple of episodes of something or another. It wasn't The Wizard of Oz, and I said, "Sure, yeah, I'd love to," and I did, and then they liked me, and so Tim and I started directing more and more. Well, he was always directing. I started directing more and more. They would pair us up. If Tim couldn't do it, they most times would come to me. Most times.
Interesting. So
at that time.
So that kind of found you. That trajectory found you. You didn't pursue that as this was something you were going to break
Not
into.
at
It
first.
found you, and then.
Not at first, but
So you fell in love with it, like the Wizard of Oz. That's like a boot camp.
Wow.
That's a very good way of putting it. Yeah, it was the best boot camp at that time you could have in Canada, for sure. Without a doubt,
Yeah.
it was wonderful, and not only because it wasn't original animation. That is to say that I wasn't doing the voice there at a mic where they're drawing to my mouth movements or whatever they're drawing to me. This was something that was done in Japanese, and we were doing it into English. So I learned how to do the rhythmo band then, and I mean, you can't get a better boot camp crash course in the
Yeah.
rhythm doing 112 episodes of something that's on the band. No way.
Wow.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
So
I loved it. I loved it.
I do have a question. So did you know that animation, like I know you said it found you, but were you a child or an adult, whatever, who would muck around with different voices? You know, like you hear the story of this person, they were imitating the TV and doing, and doing these different voices. Like it was already, they didn't know that was an actual career, but they were always doing it. So was that something that was it's natural talent for you?
Yes and no. I wasn't the kind of person who would come up with a voice,
Okay.
but I would imitate Mel Blanc or whomever.
Okay.
Try to imitate that and put my own spin on it. That I love to do. So in that way, yes. And I just love this the whole thing. When you do animation, it's just there's a cartoon energy, right? Because if you try to do it, and in some animated projects, they do want a live action feel to it. They do
Right.
want it,
Right.
they do. They want that kind of realism. Animation can be dull, for want of a better expression. It can be flat. It can make your deliveries flat. So you do need that sort of that cartoon energy. I'm not talking about all the time, no, because for me anyway, it grates on the ears. But you do need. I think you need to have that sense of cartoon energy, and you certainly need to have a sense of comedy. I certainly believe.
And play.
Right. And
And play.
absolutely, Jess, you're so
Yeah.
right. You have to want to play like you're doing
Yes.
cartoons.
Absolutely, absolutely. There are times I've said this. There are times you go into the studio, and if you're doing something, especially for children, you're doing something for children that's fun and that's positive. God makes an agreement with you, okay? He says, okay, you go in the recording studio. When that door closes, you stop aging for the time you're in the studio. That's the agreement that God has with you, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
You just forget that and you become that child again.
Yeah. So I have a question. If do you think animation voices is something that can be learned, or is it something that's innate?
I think that it is something that can be learned, but I
Okay.
think that, as I said, that you have to have that sense of fun, that sense of play. You have to have that. To go back to Jerry Paris for a second, that funny bone. I'm talking about most animated cartoons. There's some that are very serious, as you know, and they have a message and they're poignant and all the rest of it. But
Right.
those that are fun, you've got to have that in you, I think, or know how to bring it out. You
Right.
could be impressive, maybe even mean person, perhaps. But if you
Right.
can have inside you that sense of fun, you can bring that out, even though it's not real. That's what you're putting on. If you do it and you do it well, great.
Okay.
You
Yeah.
have to have that. Yeah, I do.
And I do have how has it changed? Like you've been doing animation I guess what I'm getting at, you're saying now there's an animation, or maybe there always was more with the live action vibe. My sense, and because you've been in the business, is that it was more maybe playful and childlike, and now they're going more into that live action vibe. Is it or not? Am I wrong?
Yeah,
Like, how do you
no.
think
Yes
over
and
the
no.
past few decades has it changed?
Well, that's a very good point that you're making. Yes, I think, like for example, as you know, I direct a lot of video games as well, and
Mhm.
those video games they want that sort of real live action feel to it, and understandably so. That's the way I think it should be, and that has in fact gone into animation a little bit more today. But I do also feel, as we're kind of touching on before, that sometimes you just hear it in the studio. The producers hear it in the studio when they wanted something that's a little bit more live action feel in animation, live action feel, and they hear it and they say, you know what, that's kind of flat. It is kind of
Right.
flat. Give it that little bit of, can you give it a little bit more oomph, a little bit more play in that? And once you do, it changes it. So yes, they are leaning a bit towards that. Not everybody, but they are leaning towards that. But they are open, I think, when they see that sometimes it doesn't work in animation.
Right.
They're open to tweaking it. Chill.
fun.
So, yeah. So, Richard, I wanted to talk about your career. You have been in Montreal now for many years, and you have a very successful career. You were acting, and now I believe you really focus more on the voice and the voice directing. You also taught me an amazing workshop, and I know you've taught other workshops. I mean, when I think of you, I think of you are extremely resourceful. You're obviously talented and intelligent and a wonderful person to be around. So you have all the qualities, but you're also very successful and consistently successful. And like I've been teaching for 18 years now, and when there's a lull in the city, like now there's, all the strike stuff and people are feeling blue and worried and when I think of Richard and we just talked about, I go, one thing I want to get out of him is I don't think he's ever had that. I think he's so resourceful. Like he sold scripts. Like he has so many talents and he knows where to put them. So could you talk a little bit about that? Like, are you affected by the waves in the industry, or is that where you kind of?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for the kind words you just said. That was very good for my ego. Thank you so much.
Well, and very true, very true. You
Thank
are a
Yeah.
staple in our community. It feels like you're always got something on the go.
Yeah, I hang around like a bad cold. Is that what you're saying? But in all honesty, I have felt and still do very much feel that you need in our industry, and
Mhm.
in the I'll just talk about just for a second about the Anglo community
Yes.
in Montreal. I mean, it is so small. Uh,
Yes.
that I believe that those of us who are privileged enough to be able to work in it, who want to work in it, I think you have to do more than one thing.
Right.
So, if you're an actor, yeah, you want to do stage, I'm going to assume. You want to do film, certainly, but you also want to do voice work. You do,
Yeah.
because so much of it's done right here in Montreal. For example, Montreal, some people outside of the business perhaps don't realize that, but Montreal is a world player in video games. A
Mhm.
world player. I mean, we have an unbelievable reputation throughout the world for our gaming. That's a fact.
Right.
I am lucky. I've been privileged enough to work in other cities voice directing. Los Angeles, certainly New York, Toronto, Montreal, for the Assassin's Creeds that I've done. I was lucky enough to be in London, Copenhagen. I've directed people in Iceland. I've directed a lot of people from around the world in gaming, and I can tell you for a fact I would put Montreal talent up against any of them.
Woo!
Any of them.
We
We're
like that.
we're that good. We are that good, and I say that I wouldn't say it if it wasn't true.
Yeah.
So that said, I think that people in our industry who are on our level, like, we're not, I'm not a big time producer or anything. I'm just somebody who wants to work.
Mhm.
I think you need to do more than one thing in this business. Do voice work, do theater, do film, write. Whatever you can do as an artist, and whatever you can do to to pay the bills, you should do, and be prepared to do that. That is one thing I think my dad gave me, and my siblings, a real work ethic. I'm eternally grateful for that. And I think you just have to get out there and just try to make your own work as much as you possibly can. Like, I waitered on tables. I did all kinds of stuff like that.
Mhm.
Absolutely. It made me a stronger person, I think, overall. It made me want certain things perhaps even more than I did then,
Right.
in our business. But that's what I would advise if you were asking if that was your question. I'm sorry, I'm not sure if it was or not. But
Well, it's
yeah, I think
amazing advice. And
It is. I wanted you to comment on it because we look at you as like a role model for somebody who has made a very successful career English in Montreal for many, many, many years. You weren't like, oh, because some people will have the decade from 30 to 40 where they land a couple of series and and then all of a sudden, they find themselves and things aren't, then they're stuck. They're like, what am I going to do now? I've heard stories like, I haven't worked in 7 years. I was a lead. And now, and these stories like, well, what else could you do? And it's exactly what you said, diversify, because that's what it is. So now are you still acting, Richard, or is it all like
yeah,
really voice?
Oh yeah, it is certainly 90% voice at this
Right.
stage. And don't get me wrong, if someone approaches me to do something, and I've auditioned for a couple things recently that I really wanted to do. Uh,
Okay.
but yeah, I've been lucky enough that first of all, I have to say, I'm probably going against the grain. Doing film or being a star in that way has
Mhm.
never been it's never been a big thing for me. Never, ever, ever.
Yeah.
Will I
Probably good. That's probably a good
Maybe,
thing.
Yeah.
maybe. Would I do film? Absolutely. Somebody offers me a role. I got to reprise my role as Sardo just a little while ago for Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Yeah.
The reboot on that. And
Cool.
they
Amazing.
asked me, yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, that's iconic. I mean, I never thought that role would turn into what it became.
Hmm.
It's really quite something. So for something like that, absolutely. My good friend Ron Oliver, who directed me in a couple of those Are You Afraid of the Darks, he had me come in and do Beethoven for me. A bunch of Dennis the Menace, Christmas, all that. I was lucky; didn't have to audition. They asked me if I would do it. Absolutely,
Hmm.
absolutely. So I will not turn it down. Don't get me wrong. But
Yeah.
I think I'll pay them. What the but it's never been a big thing for me to do that. It really
Yeah.
hasn't. And as you said, maybe it was a good thing, maybe, but it allowed me to do other things that I very much wanted to do, like cartoons, animation, that sort of thing. Yeah.
And I
Was that?
wanted to know that, yes, you're answering the questions
Because I
beautifully.
go off on
Thank you.
a just go
Yeah.
off.
So do we, and you're not.
Oh,
You're
good.
really on point. Um, I wanted to know about writing. I remember we had done a voice gig together many, many moons ago, and you had just sold the Incendo script. So I wanted to know how how that came about, like the writing and selling scripts and
Oh,
things like that.
well, that was wonderful. I was lucky enough to wrangle for. I think I did. I want to say it's over 40 of their films where I wrangled together, the Walla groups, and we would do Walla and ADR sort of thing. So I got to recognize and know the formula, if you
Right.
will, for that, which at that time they called Women in Jeopardy films.
Right.
It's no longer
That makes
called
sense. Okay.
but yeah, but it's got to be the woman gets into an issue, and it's got to be herself who resolves it, who figures it out, and and she is the hero, and rightfully so. Let her figure it out, not some man doing it for her. So that was great. So I got to recognize the formula, became comfortable with it, and saw what Lifetime was doing in that regard. I mean, Incendo did it for Lifetime, right? So I was lucky enough I wrote a script. And I was lucky enough to have it done. They liked it, so they asked me. I did a second one. I did. I can't remember what it's called now because my title was Last Call, and it was
Okay.
right up until it was paid for and everything else. And they changed the title. It was some other film called Last Call or something like that. And I honestly can't remember what they changed it to. But it was called Last Call.
Okay.
Anyway, so that I did a second film for Lifetime for Incendo for Lifetime. And now I have a script that's murder. That was another murder mystery, by the way.
Right.
Now I have a film that got optioned. In fact, it was presented yesterday to a producer. That's a comedy that I'm so excited about because
Oh,
I wrote this
wow.
thing. I wrote this thing. I swear to God, it's got to be 15 years ago. It was so dear to my heart, and I've completely rewritten it.
Wow. Good for
Yeah,
you. You
so
got that. Yeah, that's hard.
yeah. I mean, the bones are there, but it's been completely rewritten, and I was lucky enough to get
Wow.
an option, so I'm very happy about that. And we'll see what happens.
Right. And so,
That was the question. That was the question.
well, I'm just curious, was writing also something that you wanted to try, or just again, you found yourself in these Wallace sessions and you were like, I get this formula. I could do this. And then you were like, I did this.
Yeah, well, Susanna, in that case, with regard to the Lifetime films, only because I've been so close to them. Yes, you're absolutely right. But what really, and this is a full circle, what really pushed me as a writer was Second City.
Okay.
Because you do your own writing, you do improv, right? And
Yeah.
improv, you'll find out about your writing right away because the audience will let you know right away. They'll
Right.
say, ha ha ha, that's funny, or nothing. And
Yeah.
okay, well, that's not the way I want to go. Let me go try this way, or let me go that way, or what have you. You learn right away how to write on stage. Because you're there in that moment. So after,
Yeah.
okay, what do we do? What worked out? Then you can physically write it down. But when you're on stage, that teaches you pretty darn quickly how to write. Especially, I mean, comedy I'm speaking of now.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, but it's such an
And that really-
important muscle that like actors should
Yes.
be training that for everything.
Well, we are storytellers. I mean, that's what actors are. They're storytellers. So it does make sense that a lot of actors will also write their own scripts and stuff. But that's interesting. Your comedy training is what influenced you in saying, no, I know what works and what doesn't work because I've done this through my improv work. So I can do that.
You're right, Suzanne. And also I've been fortunate enough, not only from that Lifetime thing, the Enchendo thing, which I tip my hat to them because they're just wonderful people, and being close to seeing, I think it was 40 films I've been lucky enough to be involved in, I think, but also as a voice director and doing a poop load of a lot of dubbed movies. I would get the script. I mean, I would get the adapted script, whether it be from Japanese into English or German into English or what have you. I've done 500, really, over the course of my career. I would guess somewhere in there between animation and live action films. It's got to be 500. Take that, reading those scripts constantly. So you read and you read and you read these scripts and say, okay, well, that works. That doesn't work. This really works. Oh, I've never seen that before. That kind of thing. I learned from that as well. That's for sure.
Yeah.
From other people's writing, other people's scripts.
Yeah, and you're just immersed in it daily. That it's like how could you not learn something? But it's also you want to learn from it.
Yeah, well, exactly, Jess, exactly.
Yeah.
And I've been fortunate enough to work on some stuff that was just brilliant, like really good stuff.
Wow.
And I've worked on some stuff that's not
thinkers.
How did they get the money to put this up on screen?
Yeah.
How did it happen?
Yeah.
It happened. So you learn just as much, unfortunately not in a very pleasing way, but you learn as much from a stinker, as you said, as you do from something that's brilliant. You learn from both.
Right.
Yeah.
So, when I'm getting part of the secret to his success is that it's an enthusiasm and a presence and a joy of working. And like you said, this is what I'm seeing, a stinker or brilliance. I'm learning from both. So when you go to the office, you get in studio, you're there present and finding the lesson and the good stuff from it. So, and I think that mindset, makes a huge difference coming to work with an enthusiasm, because I bet you there's a whole lot of, I know I'm guilty of it. You go on set and the writing's bad and you have to verbalize these and you're acting in the stinker and you're nothing. It's not my fault. It sucks. So you go with that attitude, and guess what? That production company probably won't be calling you back.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. When they've got that good thing, right?
Well, when somebody comes in, it's like, okay, what can we do with this? And what can we learn from this? So I do think I kind of say that a lot. I do it a lot to the students. It's like enthusiasm can take you a long way, even if it's not great. So I love the way you said it. The stinkers, there's still lessons there. So I'm going to do my job. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Wow.
So
that's great, Richard.
Yeah.
It's I think it's really important. And it also sounds like you see opportunities everywhere. I know you like it just fell on my lap. I think it fell on his lap because he's open to it. Oh, this sounds interesting. I can do that. Like, and is that, and you like, this isn't your first rodeo. Like you've been at it for a while. So, and do you still feel that way when you go into studio, new projects,
God,
working with
still,
I
God,
know.
Yeah. Can I say God?
Yeah, you can say, yeah, a lot more than God, but yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I still get that freaking joy when I go into a studio. I'm very, very comfortable. I'm uncomfortable in 100,000 different situations or places. I'm very comfortable in a studio. I love being behind a mic. I love being beside the mic. I love when I voice direct, as you probably know, I don't want to be behind the glass and the talent's on the other side. And I want to be there. with the talent there, because I'm an actor as well. I want to be there, present beside them. I'm at the desk and I got the script and da 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 da. There are directors who would rather not do that because they want to talk to the engineer or whomever and say, I don't think this is working or this is really working. Watch this. Watch what he or she does with this. I want to be there with the actors. So to answer your question, if there was a question, is that I love being in a studio. So who doesn't love to work? I mean, we all love to, we all want to work. We all love to work. Now, maybe a stinker or two. Fine, we find our way, to get through it.
Yeah.
With a good attitude, hopefully. But I just love to work. I love to work.
Yeah.
Boom.
Period.
And I think that's also key, is like with your intention is you just love to work, you love the craft, and your intention was never it wasn't for the fame or for the recognition. It was just like, this is what I love to do, and I'm going to find multiple ways to do it. And that's what it's been. And at least that's what I'm getting.
No. Well, yeah, you're right, Jess. And I've been really fortunate insofar as, especially here in Montreal. If I didn't like it, Montreal, I wouldn't be here. Because I have plenty of opportunities where my whole family's still in Toronto, so I can go to Toronto. I'm so lucky that I work with people I truly love. I work with really talented people 98% of the time. And 98% of the time, I really like those people. I mean, I to go out with those people, spend time with those people. I really like the people that I work with. We're very fortunate in this city. I'm very fortunate.
I love that. And so I did want to ask, you do work with a ton of different actors and talent. And so what are some things that we're doing right? And what are things you feel that maybe we could work on?
With regard to voice, just for a moment, and specifically in the English community, just by quantity alone, we're better. By quantity alone, we do a lot of work here in Montreal in voice, on video gaming, as we've talked about, certainly in dubbing, dubbing, and animation. We do a lot of work here in Montreal, and we just are as good, if not better, certainly, and I go with the latter, that we're better than most cities because of the sheer amount of work that we do, the volume for such a small community. The amount of work that we do.
Right.
Do we do as much as Los Angeles? Probably not. Do we do as much as New York? Maybe. Toronto? Yes, Toronto. Vancouver, maybe not as much overall. But what we do for the size of our community is remarkable. Remarkable.
Yeah.
And we're just so good. I think just to explore that. I remember when I got here, shortly after I got here, ACTRA, our union ACTRA, had put together this maybe promotional tape is the wrong way of putting it, but just spotlighting, showcasing Montreal, playing different cities. Montreal is Austria, Montreal is Berlin, Montreal certainly is New York, that happens all the time, Montreal is Boston, etc., etc. I would like to see that sort of a promotional film with regard to our voice work, with regard to our gaming, with regard to our animation, with regard to our dubbing. Now, I know that there are certain little ads, generally by the studios themselves, to promote. Okay, I won't favor a studio by mentioning it, but there's Studio A, Studio B, and Studio C. So Studio A says, hey, we have these capabilities. We can do this with your project, this dub. Take it from the German or Japanese, I'm just using the example, into English or French. This is what we can do with your project. In animation, this is what we can do. And they have their separate ones, but a global one that ACTRA produces, highlighting, showcasing what we do. And again, I'm just speaking about voice at this point, what we can do overall in the voice arena, which would include animation and dubbing, to name just.
It's a sort of promotional tool for our city because the actors are very capable.
Yes, and hit the major gaming companies. Ubisoft knows this for sure. But GameLoft, I mean, the Warner Brothers, I mean, all of them, hit them with that. This is what you didn't know that this was done in Montreal, did you? And a lot of them don't. A lot of them don't know that final product was actually 85% of it was recorded right here in Montreal.
Yeah. Because a lot of outsiders just assume that we're all Francophone. They don't understand that we have a strong English community here.
have no idea.
It's
You know,
wild.
that's exactly what they think.
Oh,
Yeah.
amazing. And so I'm so happy that and I totally agree with you. I think our small community is amazing. What do you think our community can improve on?
Boy, well, I mean, getting ourselves known,
More
and
promotion for ourselves.
definitely more promotion.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Self-promotion. Nothing wrong with self-promotion. There's nothing wrong with that if you got the goods to back it up, and we
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. And we do.
Nothing wrong with that. Yeah, I think we should promote ourselves more. That's true.
That's
Yeah,
I
we
love
need
that.
to
Though,
do
what can we improve on? Self-promotion.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I love that. That's a great, that's,
Nothing wrong with that.
yeah.
It helps
that's
everybody. It helps
helps.
all of us. All of
True.
us. You know, from certainly, obviously, the talent for sure, but the writers, the producers, it helps everyone
Yeah.
in our business.
Yeah.
To promote our talent.
Absolutely, we're that good. We're that good.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. Me too.
Now to change the topic a little bit, I wanted to ask you a little bit about AI and what do you think it's going to do to our voice community? Do you think it's going to affect us? What is your thoughts on that? Because there's
Well,
fear.
I have to say that I'm not learned enough to really give an opinion, but what little I do know, because
Okay.
I've worked with this sort of situation,
Yeah.
literally up to last week, on a project where they're using AI to help manipulate our lips.
Okay.
So a dubbed film, and I'm just taking a language. Well, you pick the language, and I'll tell you what I think. But let's say it's, I don't know, Spanish, Cantonese, because we've done that too.
Right.
It'll make our not the easiest, as I guess you probably know, for us to dub German, for the German into English is much easier.
Right.
Based on old German, right? So it's easier. The lip movements are easier for
They
us.
match. Yeah.
But Mandarin, uh, sometimes Spanish can be very, very tricky. Portuguese, that into English, no matter how accurate you can be on the rhythmo band, how good your detection is, and it better be good, your detection is, or your voice direction is, and your talent is, there's going to be words that you simply do not fit on our English lips that's coming out in Portuguese or Mandarin, or you pick the language.
Right.
But now with AI, what they're doing, again, it's very much in the embryonic stage. They're manipulating the lips just to have the shape, whatever. If you're hitting the labial, or whatever you're hitting there, make it look like you're speaking English. To make that character,
Wow.
you know, an Asian person speaking Mandarin, let's say, so it looks like they're speaking English. That is good. I mean, that's good. You would think that, you know, with the proper detection, voice direction, adaptation, and talent, we should be able to make it look as real as possible, and we do a great job. But there will be, like I said, words that just it doesn't look like you're saying that. You know, you can't, no matter how much you try to do it. When you're saying the line in English, you can't do it. But with AI, they can certainly help that along. That's for sure.
That's
And this
cool.
is something that's
Right. The other thing I was wondering, again, I don't know enough about AI. I'm like, but will they be able to just take the original Spanish version, use their actual voice and just dub it into English that way? You know what I mean? Just actually
tone of their voice and
actually have the actors. So I'm talking to you now and all of a sudden I'm speaking French because they can kind of do that. So they wouldn't need to hire an outside actor to do it. You know, and then maybe, but you know what? What I read, we had Simon on in season 1, and he was saying that, like, Simon Peacock.
Who?
You never heard of him?
Very good friends with Simon Peacock, the president of our.
I know. And he was kind of saying that, like, look, yes, Sinar was like the huge animation, and then that kind of dipped, and then guess what? Here comes video games, and now video games is still doing very well, but they stabilized a little bit because of, I don't know, production or finishing off productions, and they haven't started the new productions yet. It's kind of an in-between stage. And he says, but here comes dubbing. He said, so Montreal, it's like, it's not like, oh, we lost this, new stuff comes. So I do think that if whatever they're going to figure out with AI, it's going to influence and affect but other stuff will come in. We won't be redundant. Actors will not be redundant. You know what I mean? And we'll
Open up other
find our
doors.
way in. But what I love, what I absolutely love about you, and I was like, I'm going to use you as like the role model and like take his attitude and you will be successful. Is I ask you about AI and people right away go, fear, they're going to your first thing was like, it was so cool what they can do. Like your first initial, like, this is so cool. And I was like,
Yeah.
not worried at all. You know, no, you
Well,
are,
if you
you're
don't,
realistic.
if you don't go with the times, you know, that's you're going to be left on the wayside.
I
It's
love that.
it's very interesting what Simon said because it's true. It's very true.
Mhm.
You know, these things do they come in waves, and one may ebb a little bit, but another one, you know, comes up to shine. With regard to dubbing, I said this in the class. This is the golden age of dubbing. I mean, I've been
Yes.
dubbing a long time, and I've never seen this much dubbing at the same time
Wow.
ever. A lot of that, I think I can say the name Netflix, but a lot of that is
Yeah.
you know, Netflix and others coming on Prime starting to get up there too, have a lot of product. I mean, we think of Netflix, you know, whatever's on in English perhaps, but Netflix has got, you know, the films they've done in Spain, in Portugal, in you know, in Germany, in China, in Korea, a lot in Korea, Argentina. They have all this product in those languages.
Yeah.
So they've already got the product. They've already got it. Now what we want to do is we want to dub it into English, which is basically for the whole world, right? So we're getting a lot of that. I mean, thank goodness for what Netflix has brought to the dubbing community, because there's just so much of it going on right now. It really is the golden age of dubbing, in my opinion.
Amazing.
We will
Yeah.
look
It's
back.
exciting.
Yeah, it is. So if you want to dub, if you want, and I said this in the class, you want to dub, you want to learn how to dub, this is
It's
your
the
time.
yeah.
Do it
Yeah.
now, because they want dubbers and they want new voices.
And I can say I took Richard's class and it's amazing. And ACTRA has them happening now every month with different teachers too. But it's it's phenomenal. And I already got one little booking from it. So
Yes.
woohoo! So it's yeah, amazing. You know, it's amazing and it's fun.
For you and for several other students, I think it's about 6 of you, I thought really rose to the top.
Great.
Because we have, so there's now maybe 7 or 8, maybe the directors that direct sort of all the time. And we pass this information around. So say, yeah, you know, I just gave a class and so-and-so and so-and-so and so was really good. Took to the band well, may need a little hand holding for a couple of things that maybe that are on the band, but I believe that after a couple of times up with the band, they'll be aces, and that's what you need. You need that new blood coming in.
Well, thank you, Richard, and it's really fun. So I love doing it, and
excellent.
And everybody did. Anyways, I can tell that our whole group, everybody loved. We were all kind of standing there going, "This is amazing! Like, what next?" You know, you have that feeling of like, "Now what?" We loved it. So it was really good.
And now we're being allowed to bring people into audit, which is fabulous. Because understandably during COVID, as Jenna knows, because I explained this in the class, I would go from having maybe 3, sometimes 4, if I was lucky, especially if there's only one person at the mic, 4 people at the back watching, auditing, and learning from the people who are actually doing it. Excuse me. Then COVID came in, and you couldn't have anybody in the studio. You could barely have more than one actor in the studio. That was rare.
Yeah.
But now we're starting to be allowed to have people to audit, which is fabulous.
Well, thank you, Richard. We're going to slowly start to wrap it up now, but I do want to know what is in the pipeline for you. What are the smaller projects, bigger projects, big dreams? Like, what's going on? What's next for Richard M. Dumont?
Well, some things I can't discuss on because they're NDA, right? So I have a non-disclosure agreement. So, but I know that I will be starting this one. I can talk about. I'm starting a film on Monday. I'll be doing an Argentinian film, as a matter of fact.
Nice.
I'll be voice directing that. So the people that had, with regard to that screenplay I mentioned, the people that have optioned it took it to producer yesterday. So I'm waiting to hear about that. We'll see about that.
Possibility.
Yeah, it's a possibility. And I'm in 3 different cartoon series right now.
Wow.
And there may be another series maybe they're doing a third season of a series that I have directed the first 2 seasons. I'm hoping they'll hire me to direct the 3rd season when it comes out. That's
Cool.
it.
Amazing.
That's where I am. That's where I am. And I got to regrout my bathroom tiles on Saturday. How's that?
It's always
Never
fun.
stops. Very proud. Very proud.
Well, I think it's amazing. And as I said before, I mean, Jess and I, our reason for this is to highlight Montreal talent and give our listeners ideas. And I think we got so much from you today. And thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. It was
Yeah,
great
it was-
talking. Great talking.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
no, it
you
was
had
really
a lot
nice.
of great information.
Any excuse not to regrout those bathroom tiles.
So, for today's takeaways: 1, do more than one thing and be prepared to do more than one thing. 2, go with the times or you'll fall at the wayside. 3, be receptive. There are opportunities everywhere. And 4, Montreal is seeing the golden age of dubbing. So if this is something that sparks you, now is your time. Bye, everybody. Have a great week. If you're enjoying this podcast, we would really appreciate it if you could take a moment to support us.
Leave us a review on your favorite podcast app. You can share this podcast with your friends and colleagues and follow us on social media at Book the Room Podcast.
We put out episodes weekly, so subscribe to the shows to get notified.